Well, it's another week where the NFL, where the game of football takes another player that we love away from us. These injuries have been absolutely brutal, man. But we're going to talk about it, talk about our panic level from a 1 to 10. Do me a massive favor, go ahead and smash that like button. In fact, we do have a giveaway in today's video. If you want to enter that giveaway, all you got to do is make sure that you're subscribed and that you've liked the video. And on tomorrow night's stream before Monday Night Football, we'll announce a winner for one of our 2025 team playbooks. It's a customized game plan for your fantasy team, customized team review. Again, if you want to enter in, all you got to do is like the stream and make sure that you're subscribed. Well, the first name we need to talk about, and let me just say, this video, it's okay to be frustrated in this video. It's okay to let out some emotion in this video. It's okay to be honest and raw and real. This is a safe space, not only just for me, but for you. And the next name that unfortunately the fantasy gods took away from us, probably fantasy football's favorite player, not Quinshon Judkins, Cam Skattebo. Unfortunately, Cam Skattebo, yeah, he's not going to play again this year. In fact, I can't tell you 100% if he's even going to be ready for the beginning of next year's season. This is about as bad as an injury can possibly get. I'm not going to show the injury on the screen because it is quite gruesome. If anybody ever saw the Dak Prescott ankle injury, where he pretty much broke his ankle and it was in the opposite direction, that's basically what happened to Cam Skattebo. He's not going to miss time. He's going to miss the entire season, right? So he will not be back in your fantasy teams. And that is hard to hear, but it's true. Can we just give some love to Cam Skattebo here? I mean, as the man is getting carted off the field, Eagle fans, of all fans in the NFL, Eagle fans who have probably the worst representation of themselves, according to other fan bases, they were cheering this man as he went off the field. The RB8 in fantasy football through 8 weeks looked absolutely incredible out there. Was not only dominant on the ground, but also dominant through the air. In this game versus Philadelphia, before he went out, he also had the receiving touchdown. I mean, the guy has 5 touchdowns in the last 3 games. Just an absolute unit, an absolute force. But unfortunately, he will not be available for your fantasy football teams. So obviously the panic is a 10 out of 10. What we really need to talk about is how does that impact this backfield? Because Tyrone Tracy will be the next obvious name to step up here, right? In this game, he had 13 total touches. It is a game that they were down for the majority of the time. We saw all last year, Tyrone Tracy is a more than capable back. We saw plenty of good games. Like week 5 last year, he had 14 fantasy points. Week 6, 22, 23 in week 8, 15 in week 10. You've seen plenty of, decent performances from Tyrone Tracy. So he will be able to step in straight away, in my opinion, and be a flexible name. Now, if we're looking at rankings for the rest of the year, I've already removed Skattebo from them entirely, and I've currently placed Tyrone Tracy right there at running back 28. That's just an initial reaction. I don't know exactly how high I will move him, but he is, in my opinion, going to be the starting running back on what is an ascending offense. So, I mean, yeah. I guess we have a moment of silence, shall we? Let's just have a quick moment of silence for Mr. Cam Skattebo. We love you, Cam. I hope you rest up well, my friend. Okay, another running back that we all love that was injured, Mr. Quinshon Judkins. Now, we don't know exactly the full extent of the injury just yet, and I guess the positive news for the Cleveland Brown owners out there who own Quinshon Judkins is he is going to be on a bye next week regardless. So even if you own Quinshon Judkins, this is probably best case scenario if he was going to sustain an injury. The only reason I say that is because, again, he wasn't going to play next week with this injury, but he already has a bye. So, I mean, things could be far worse. Now, this is the play that we believe the injury happened. You see on that right shoulder of his, a lot of weight he's taking on that shoulder. Jeff Mueller, one of our favorites in the industry, says concern for AC and or clavicle. And he said, no, I don't think they took Judkins out because, they were blown out in the game. He's basically saying, let's wait to hear the severity, but it's probably going to be some missed time. So again, devastating news if you own Quinshon Judkins, but it could be worse because at least he was going to miss next week no matter what. Right behind him, you do have names like Jerome Ford. You do have names like Dylan Sampson. These are going to be the guys that are quote-unquote next up if this ends up being a very serious injury. You guys remember in week number 1, Dylan Sampson was the premier back to own in this backfield. He had 17 fantasy points. A lot of that came through the air with Joe Flacco targeting him, had 10 points the next week. Jerome Ford has been more of the reliever back, but I think they will both have a role in this offense without Quinshon Judkins. If I had to prioritize one as a pickup, it would be Dylan Sampson. Obviously, you have to keep in mind that Judkins was just a special name because he was performing in such a bad backfield because he's an elite prospect, an elite talent. So you're probably not going to get that same exact production from a backup. But yeah, the panic is probably a 6 or 7 out of 10, depending on how severe this injury is. Okay, another running back that had an injury on Sunday was Saquon Barkley. Now, Saquon Barkley, the panic, let's just get this out of the way. The panic level is a 1 or a 2 out of 10. You should not panic about Saquon Barkley. Just like Quinshon Judkins, Saquon does have his bye next week. So it's the perfect time. I know it sounds silly, but it's the better time than any time this year for him to sustain a small little injury that he can kind of deal with. Now, obviously, as we all know, Saquon Barkley left the game with that groin injury. Later, according to Erin Andrews, Saquon was talking to her, said his groin injury is okay, and he didn't want to come out of the game, but of course the coaching staff played it safe. Elliot Shore Parks mentioned that Saquon seemed confident he will be able to play against Green Bay despite being kept out of the game on Sunday. Again, if you look at his schedule next week, he does have the bye. So you're looking at week 10 with Saquon Barkley. So again, we never wish injuries on anyone, obviously, but if Saquon's going to get an injury, this is the week that you would, prefer of any week, especially if it's a manageable injury. He did kind of bounce back to his elite fantasy football status here, 33.4 points against his former New York Giants. So you love to see that. But yeah, unfortunate news for Saquon, but could be worse for sure. Okay, let's talk about Rico Dowdle. Now, you might be confused, like, why exactly are we talking about Rico Dowdle? Well, it's just because this backfield, which is why we suggested to sell Rico Dowdle 2 weeks ago, right before Chuba came back, multiple weeks before he was back. We were just really encouraging you guys, go sell Chuba Hubbard. The reason he's in this video is because he's just not a consistent play anymore, guys. He's just not. That's just point blank period. That's the truth. In this game, you can see Chuba Hubbard had 35 snaps, 22 for Rico Dowdle. So Chuba Hubbard was out there far more. Rico didn't have a single target. He had 8 total touches. Chuba Hubbard had 14. So in this game, Chuba Hubbard, who we talked about this before, their captain, they decided to go to their captain more than Rico Dowdle. Now, Rico Dowdle is a great player. Rico Dowdle did more with his opportunities than Chuba Hubbard did, but still, it's going to be a split backfield regardless. You're going to have the perfect matchup for Rico Dowdle to end up being a player that you really want to play. And I just don't want to deal with that week in, week out. Next week, he faces Green Bay, which is a very difficult defense to run on. You imagine the Panthers are probably going to be down in that game. Not a great scenario, right? I mean, maybe week 10 versus New Orleans, but there's not really any matchup outside of New Orleans in week 10 that you're excited about until their bye week in week 14. I just don't know outside of that week 10 game against New Orleans if there's going to be another time this year where you're really excited to start a Rico Dowdle. And that's just unfortunately the nature of a player who's splitting a backfield in a below par offense. So I'm not sitting here saying that he's useless, that you should drop him, but my panic is probably a 7 out of 10. Just as we predicted, we don't always get everything right, but as we predicted, he's just not that useful in a split backfield for fantasy football purposes. Okay, let's talk about Jordan Mason, who on Thursday night, it got pretty bad. It got pretty bad for Jordan Mason on Thursday night. Obviously, the Chargers were up in this game and they were dominant, so there was never really a chance for Jordan Mason to establish himself, on the ground. But this is why we were suggesting to sell Mason throughout our streams last week, because when Aaron Jones is back, it's a true split backfield again. Now, especially in games where the Vikings are down and needing to throw the ball, like on Thursday night, you can see Aaron Jones had 26 snaps compared to 17 for Jordan Mason, had 9 touches compared to just 5 for Jordan Mason. Obviously, as we all know, Jordan Mason finishes with just 1.6 fantasy points, absolutely killed your fantasy week. He'll probably be on that, imperfect lineup that a lot of these social media accounts go out and post, because he just didn't have a good day. It just wasn't good, didn't work out. And ultimately, he let you down in a very, very big way. And to be honest with you guys, I mean, it's going to be a split backfield from here on out, right? They play Detroit. You're not going to be excited about facing that defense. But at least in week 10 and week 11, you got Baltimore and Chicago. But he's gone from, a must start without Aaron Jones to you're not sure when you can start him. Right now, he's my RB29. honestly, I'd probably prefer Ramondre Stevenson at this point. We should probably put Jordan Mason in that same tier with the Ricos, and maybe at this point we do put the Isaiah Pacheco's and the Trey Bensons ahead of them, knowing that they will be the premier running back in their backfield. Well, at least Benson, right? So I'm definitely concerned. You can let me know what you think in the comments below, what your panic level is. We're going to dive into some wide receivers, but just before we do, I greatly appreciate you guys spending some time with us. If you'd like to enter today's giveaway, we are giving away a 2025 team playbook, which is basically a customized review for your fantasy team. All you got to do is make sure that you've liked the video and that you've subscribed. And then on tomorrow night's stream, join us before Monday Night Football, and we will announce a winner for the giveaway. Okay, let's jump into some wide receivers here, starting off with Darnell Money Mooney. Now, why is Darnell Mooney on this video? Well, a lot of people last year obviously had a lot of success rostering Darnell Mooney. He was a very successful fantasy football player. This year, unfortunately, even in games without Drake London, he has not eclipsed 10 PPR points. Now, to be fair, I mean, that entire Falcons offense was just dreadful. But in this game, he caught 1 of 4 targets for 11 yards. What exactly is the scenario in which you're going to start Darnell Mooney? Like, at what point this year are you going to say, yeah, I'm going to start him with confidence? To me, this is like a solid 8, 9, 10 panic out of 10. You can probably drop the guy. Honestly, like, at what point this year will you be comfortable to start him? I mean, clearly, Kirk Cousins, that chemistry is not there right now, and Michael Penix doesn't really prefer him over Drake London. So I don't know when you're going to be comfortable starting Darnell Mooney. This is about as bad as it gets, in my opinion. Maybe you guys have a different opinion than me, and that's totally valid if you do, but I think he's a cuttable name. You know, if you're going into Sunday Night Football and Brashard Smith is available, for example, or another guy that you can stash Monday Night Football tomorrow, then I would prefer to drop him and see who I can stash instead. But again, you know, he led the team in snaps. That's great. Led the team in targets amongst wide receivers. Well, actually, Hodge led them with 8. It's just he's not making enough of an impact to warrant a roster spot at this point, in my opinion. Okay, this next name is going to be a little bit controversial. I would like to talk about T. Higgins because if anybody watched the Bengals game, he got bailed out a little bit, in my opinion. I don't know how you can say he didn't. Obviously, he made a great play. Joe Flacco threw a great ball. He got that 44-yard receiving touchdown. However, my concern, the red flags for T. Higgins, is that in a game where over 80 total points were scored, 80 total points, right? He had just 2 targets. 2 single targets. That's got to be concerning. I mean, if you're a T. Higgins owner, be so for real right now. 2 targets? Knowing that that's a possibility with Joe Flacco? That's concerning to me, man. Maybe not to you guys, but what happens if he drops that ball? What's the narrative? Now, of course, like there's always a big play threat with the T. Higgins and with the Joe Flacco behind that quarterback, but that's concerning to me, man. I will be looking to sell high on a T. Higgins if you can. You know, that's 3 games in a row, over 10 PPR points. I would just, you know, we talked about in the flock league, but if you can trade T. Higgins in for a Nico Collins, I would encourage you to go out and do that. It's just, this is ultimately going to be Jamar Chase as the only safe weapon out of the air in Cincinnati. So my panic is, you know, only a 4 out of 10. You can keep him. You can keep playing him every week, but he is still in that boom bust category, in my opinion. Okay, let's go to A.J. Brown. Just want to quickly talk about A.J. To anybody out there who owns him, he did miss this week with a hamstring injury that he was kind of managing throughout practice. So unfortunately, he was not healthy enough to go out there and play. Now, a lot of you will remember this. He had a hamstring injury earlier in the year, and that held him back, and he was not the same player. Obviously, he didn't practice this entire week. They said maybe he has a chance to play. Obviously, he doesn't go out there and play this week. Now, just like Saquon Barkley, this is the best time for him to have a little injury that he has to deal with. Because again, the bye week is in week 9, so he will have 2 full weeks to recover. I'm not too concerned about him. We've already gotten reports that he's expected to have a realistic chance to return in week 10. So that's obviously good news. My panic on him, again, just like Saquon, a 1 to 2 out of 10. You really don't need to panic, right? And the last name I want to talk about here, let me know if there's a name that I missed in the comments below. I would love to hear from you guys. Is there a name that you think I missed out that I should have brought in today's video? Let's talk about Quentin Johnston. No catches for Quentin Johnston on Thursday Night Football. I mean, we are getting into really, it's not just red flags, it's red alarms, and the alarms are loud. They're as loud as they can possibly get. No catch on Thursday Night Football. Quentin Johnson in the first 5 weeks of the season was a top 7 wide receiver in fantasy football. And now the production is just completely fallen off. I hope to God you sold him before the Fugazi kind of caught up a little bit. You know, Ladd McConkey, you weren't going to hold Ladd McConkey down this entire year. It just wasn't going to happen. Keenan Allen already showed us that he's still a reliable producer through the air. As we know, Oronde Gadsden, the Gads daddy, Oronde the Giant, we've seen him as an incredible vertical threat as well. He is threatening. All these guys are threatening Quentin Johnston through the air. Quentin Johnston's basically Jameson Williams at this point. Like, let's be so for real. He's Jameson Williams, but maybe a little bit more trustworthy. So my panic is like a solid 8, 9 out of 10. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you guys. But we're talking about a game on Thursday night where Ladd McConkey had 10 targets. Even Trey Harris out-snapped Quentin Johnston. Trey Harris got into the end zone, right? Keenan Allen had 5 targets. Oronde had 5 targets. No targets at all for Quentin Johnson. He was just out there running cardio. That's got to be a real concern if you own QJ, but I don't know what to tell you. You should have sold him high. We're not always going to get things right, but that was one of those situations where it was really difficult to determine what was real and what was a trend. And unfortunately, it looks like Quentin Johnson was more of the trend than real. But guys, I appreciate you watching the video. Again, if I ended up missing anybody, please let me know in the comments below. I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Do me a favor, like the video, subscribe, and if you do so, like I said earlier, you will be entered into tomorrow night's giveaway where we're giving away a team playbook before Monday Night Football on our live stream. Appreciate you guys. Enjoy Sunday Night Football. Enjoy Monday Night Football, and we'll see you guys very, very soon. Love.